Now, in Live on Live this Thursday, I'm joined in the studio by Kenneth Okoth, who's a Kenyan MP for Nairobi's Kibra constituency, who was elected to office 5 years ago on the platform of education first, and who, according to many who live there, has been transforming the educational sector in Kibra, which also includes the city's largest slum, which is Kibera. Ken, you're very welcome to the program.
Thank you, David.
Umekaribu sana hapa RFI, mzee.
Asante sana.
Hana shida. Now, first and foremost, what brings you to Paris?
I'm here as part of a French government program and exchange for emerging leaders and leaders of the future. It's an opportunity to learn from French counterparts in the academia, in civil society and NGOs, and within the government about different issues that are important to me, like human rights, youth development, and environmental conservation, healthcare. So I'm learning a lot through this process.
It's a broad sweep. How long do you have in Paris now to cover all those subjects?
It is 1 week, 5 days, and each day I've had a different theme, and I actually selected the topic, so it's my fault that it's very broad, but I don't mind.
That's good. Okay, so it's 5 days, but intensely so. But let's look into your political career. Now, you were the first person from the Kibera slum to be elected to Parliament back in 2013, and over the past 5 years, what has changed? I mean, what has been achieved?
I think the most important issue for us in Kibra has been to give the people a sense of we can live with each other and we don't have to have conflict with each other. We can cooperate and solve our issues in management of the resources that we get and control directly for Kibra constituency. All people pay taxes, and my vision has been to make sure all people need to feel the impact of their taxes. All people deserve development. So we've been very careful in how we manage public resources that come to the Constituency Development Fund and to invest them in ways that impact the most numbers of family. It can't do everything that we need, but it impacts the most people through our Education First policy. We reach more children from all over the constituency and more families in a way that is long-term investment.
And indeed, the main thing about when people paying taxes is really for the people on the ground to feel that their taxes are going somewhere towards something. And of course, in a place like Kibera, sewerage is one of the big issues. You know, you've got open sewers, and I believe that you've been trying to petition the Nairobi government to just get some action going. How is that going now for the residents of Kibera?
Yeah, so the challenge is, we have a beautiful constitution that actually guarantees the right to housing of a decent standard, which would include, again, the sewage, access to water, safe electricity connections, and things like that. So step by step, what have we done in the last 5 years? We've engaged with the government. There was part of a cleanup project that has since been interrupted, but we'll be engaging with the government to restart it. But it was also a youth empowerment program, so the locals owned the cleaned up of the community. But number two is, if you compare today and 5 years ago, a few more sewer lines have been put in, a few more toilets and communal ablution blocks have been put in that are connected to the sewer lines. Yeah. Some have been built, but we haven't put in the sewer lines yet. So step by step, we're getting there.
And indeed, moving away from maybe kind of like the bigger issues, I mean, Kibera is a very big place with a very dense population. What are the key problems that remain to be solved that are kind of persisting there?
I'd say a lot of times when people think about Kibera, they think of problems of Kenya. I think just Kibera is an indicator, but Kibera is also a solution. The reason why we have slum dwellings and informal settlements in cities like Nairobi is because people are moving in and looking for opportunities in the cities that have not been well planned, and the pressure and the demand is too high to be met. So the services that are required for the poor, for the new migrants to the city, but also for existing growing population within the city are not there. So Kibera is actually in some way a solution. It's a first place you come to out of the rural areas if you don't have many other connections, and it's a place you can start living at. And we just have to make sure, how do we make sure the people who live there affordably and with dignity and with safety and security and a certain basic standard of health. So we're working on it step by step, but I would say it's not the only slum, and it's a huge global challenge, the emergence of slums and informal settlements.
Sure, it's a problem that isn't just the problems you get in Kibera are not just based there. It's a global issue as well.
I would say the biggest investment is invest in our people, give them dignity, let them live safely, take care of their health of their children, provide them clean water so they're not sick and things like that. But it's also a home of talent. The next generation of musicians, of soccer players will come to the World Cup and compete with France.
Or we could mention our mutual friend Gilbert Nyangwa, who's
a great rugby player and rugby fan. But we've had the Kenya Sevens team has always had 2 or 3 players. The coach who took Kenya to victory in Singapore Sevens is from Kibera. So we're making strides. So Kibera is a home of champions. It's a home of talent and opportunity. And that for me as a person communicating to the world and representative of my people, we'd say, look beyond the poor quality of the houses we have, but see the dignity and our potential as any other human being.
And I can vouch for that and I can also vouch for my friend Gilbert, who is a Kibera resident for many years. So it is very true. It is a place also of opportunity that has brought forward some very interesting and very good and intelligent characters such as yourself and Gilbert, I can say. But as an MP with the Orange Democratic Movement, you have taken up the challenge of transforming the educational sector in Kibra and empowering Kiberians, for example, on socio-economic matters. Where does one start with socio-economic empowerment? What is the first place that you begin at?
Wow. 3 places interconnected. Number 1 is invest in the children, because children's chances for training and education is a very perishable short window period you have, sort of a shelf life of when kids can they go to school. So give them access to school and emphasize that beyond the access to school, they have quality. What are they learning in that school? Because some children go to school and don't learn anything.
That's a problem indeed all over Africa. It's the quality of the training of the teachers and also the salaries of the teachers that is a big impediment.
And even the commitment of the teachers, once they're in the school, they've been paid by government taxes, but are they actually teaching or not? So we must make sure our children are in school and the quality of the education they're getting academically, talent development, their character and psychosocial development is taken care of. So that's a great place to start. It affects all families in the communities, and both the little children and teenagers who need to go and finish high school, because high school is not free. It's expensive. Parents are still paying, and that excludes some children. It actually excludes very many children. So you want to make sure that is figured out. The second aspect is we must focus is gender. And Barack Obama was in Kenya the other year, and he said no team can move forward when half its players never get on the field. And this is true for Kenya. Half our society is women, 52%. If you do not have a policy and interventions that make sure women are at the center just as men, boys and girls equally are treated and given the opportunity to go to elementary school, to finish high school, to find tertiary education opportunities, then the society falls behind. You miss the talent and the productivity of those people, their full capacity. They'll spend a lifetime producing very little for the society than what you can. So, so I think those are the 2 key things I would say.
The axis,
bring access to education, but make sure it's quality education and follow through and empower parents to ask questions about, have the children been taught? Has the curriculum been covered? Is there under teaching? Are they doing exams they're not prepared for because they weren't taught? But
I mean, even to get that in process, I mean, it's also just to maintain that the quality is there once it's in place. But I would like to go back onto something. Well, you touched on there, indeed, it's about, you just mentioned taxes.
Yes.
Recently, President Uhuru Kenyatta pushed through a tax bill, 8% VAT tax bill. What do the residents or the constituents in Kibra make of that VAT hike? It was a bit of a polemic, and people were worried about a massive hike in fuel prices. How has it been received by your voters?
It's actually a sad thing for me because I represent the people of Kibra. You have people who still rely on kerosene to light their houses, to fuel to cook. Maybe they don't have access to gas, they don't have access to electricity. Yet you've raised VAT on them. So that's an issue. I think in Kenya we really need a progressive tax regime where you're taxing the luxury goods and the high end of the market things, And then things like VAT that are for the basic dignity and living costs of people, you reduce the taxes on that. So I think we don't have our tax system right. It's an ongoing debate. And even the support that ODM gave was very conditional on the government fighting corruption. The taxes to be raised from the current VAT proposal of 8% are about 35 billion Kenya shillings a year. The amount of wastage and corruption and loss and mismanagement of collected taxes and foreign debts that are given to the Kenyan government is in the tune of 600 billion a year. So 20 times what we are planning to collect on this tax, which we're imposing on our people. So if we just changed and were serious about fighting corruption and stopping the leakage and being more diligent about fully collecting the taxes from corporations that are not fully paying their taxes, we would have the resources in Kenya and not have to squeeze the poor man at the bottom of the pyramid for more.
Sure, it's always, well, that's unfortunately, the trickle-down economics don't always work indeed. Now, but the one you're touching on it there about the Kenyatta's anti-corruption drive. Last year's election was a very acrimonious affair, and then there was the rerun in the autumn. And Kenyatta finally got his mandate validated, but opposition leader, I mean, you could say your leader, the ODM's Raila Odinga, he then staged an alternative inauguration and was really running headfirst into accusations of sedition. But a year after all of this, has a modicum of bipartisanship taken hold within Parliament, or does it remain strictly divided along party lines? I mean, is everyone behind the anti-corruption drive, for example?
Well, corruption affects all Kenyans equally.
So they are behind Kenyatta on this?
I think they are behind a better Kenya. Whether it's not fighting corruption is not just for President Kenyatta himself. He has to lead from the front. He has the tools and he controls the government. But it is in the interest of every Kenyan that we fight corruption. Corruption is a justice issue. It's a health issue when women go to hospital to deliver a baby and there's no medications, there's no clean gloves for the nurses and the doctors. So it's a security issue. If our police are corrupt at the borders, they'll let in terrorists and weapons and things like that. So there's many ways in which corruption affects us, and we all must fight it. So I think one of the things I know as a leader is we have only one Kenya, and we must be very wise not to tear it apart. Let us build peace, and let us solve our problems in a way that is peaceful. Yeah.
Okay, Kenneth, we're going to have to leave it at that. Kenneth Okoth MP for Kibra constituency in Nairobi. Nashukuru sana bwana.
Asante Rafiki.